BSides welcome Stacey who will be discussing the topic of protecting third-party risk from plundering. Stacey is currently employed as a senior InfoSec consultant specializing in GRC, risk mitigation, and vulnerability testing. The floor is yours, Stacey.
For those of you that don't know me, get ready for some edutainment, and in this instance, a lot of memes around pirates. Just a disclaimer, piracy is a crime. I am a pirate, but you know, I work for the good guys. Try to. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm entering my 19th year of IT work. Started out sysadmin, building high-performance computing systems, moved into risk assessments, policy, those horrible things like FSMA. So a lot of government regulatory compliance is in my background. And currently I'm working on third-party risk, and I'm looking at protecting the cyber supply chain. Outside of all this, and the tons of conferences I tend to go to.
You want? This is push a lot of them. That's not okay.
Does this help? Outside of that, I'm also an endurance athlete. I'm an Ironman, hence Iron Pirate, and you know, piracy is my life. Yar. It's Tampa. I gotta go with it. So, obviously, things such as compliance, regulatory, and all these wonderful things, not many people find it to be sexy or hot. However, these are all key components in protecting all of our critical infrastructure. Whether you're working for Defense Department, you're working for your electrical company, financial institutions. You know, all of this is largely in private industry. And you know, we're the forefront of protecting these critical assets from the bad guys that are out there. So it may not be the new hotness out there as far as 0 days, but we're essential. And as long as we're out there fighting, hopefully we're doing good. So what is the problem that we are facing in terms of third-party risk, supply chain? Well, 63% of all of our data breaches have been linked to third party. So think about a lot of breaches in fairly recent history. Target, Home Depot. These are all things that have been through third party integration that has exposed a company to a vulnerability. So keep this in mind and think about where are your vendors? You know, who are you utilizing? Now, this might be maybe you're using a cloud provider, or you're outsourcing your human resources. So they have all of your PII information on your employees, and it's stored offsite out of your control. These are the things that are exposing us to risk. And this is universal. It's not just one industry that has this issue. We're all potential victims in terms of where this could be exploited. Simply because it's more things that aren't directly in our control, so there's more opportunities for there to be vulnerabilities. How do you know that your vendor you've outsourced your HR to, how do you know that they're actively employing best practices, whether that's, you know, they're using OSWAP or maybe they're employing NIST standards? Are they using any standards at all? Or are they even using encryption? These are things that don't necessarily come up in terms of going through the supply chain purchase process, simply because you'll have an engineer that says, we need this package, go buy PeopleSoft. And someone from sourcing will go out, implement the purchase, and then you have it. Well, where's the security process as far as the review? We don't necessarily have a project on everything. So not we don't have the flow. It kind of goes without saying that part of this problem is compliance is not security. And NIST themselves say this in their 853 revision 4. Compliance is just the baseline. This is where we should start from. So whether you have to deal with SOX, HIPAA, NERC, NIST standards, the DoD, RMF, irregardless of what standards you're deploying, these are simply your baseline. We can always do more and better. And we need to. Because we're only looking at a small subsection when we really start looking at compliance. And part of that is the process that we look at compliance. How many people here enjoy doing any kind of compliance-related activities? Right? Rare few. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of process and procedure, and it takes time. For most of you, you would rather be out there in the trenches, deploying the technology, having fun. That's where people like me come in, and we let us be our little policy wonk selves, and we try to fix the problem. But there's also a lot of people that are just, okay, here's my list of 10 things I need to deploy. Done, done, done. Could they have done it better? Yes. Because, for example, if you have a requirement that you must have a password policy, and there's no details as far as it needs to change every 90 days, it needs to be 16 characters, it needs to be a mix, people are just going to implement that you have passwords. They won't implement the stringents. Bare minimum. And this is something that we really have to get away from, is the checkbox mentality. Simply because the reality is, well, you may not know it, but there's holes in your ship already. There are avenues which have been exploited or can be exploited. Look at, again, issues such as Target or OPM. How long were the attackers in these organizations before it was found that they were breached? So we do need to do a more holistic approach. It's not a one-stop process as far as fixing things. But this is all part of things we need to be aware of when we work on improving what we already have. Because bad guys are out there. And if there's a way that they can exploit a trust relationship you have, they're going to. Because it makes it so much easier to get in if you already have a trust established with another corporation. And I'm sure most of you, you're aware. Why do they do this? It's a real easy return on investment. It is so cheap to rent a botnet right now. And when you look at some of the other recent events, for example, our DNS issue a few months back, that was a botnet. And what was the botnet running off of? It was a bunch of Internet of Things devices. So, yeah, this is more things that we need to be aware of. Because how many times have, well, bring your own device, for example. There's a good flaw as far as security within your organization. Or this need to have the latest, greatest technology, whatever it is, and deploy it without fully vetting its security and how you're going to control it within your environment. Innovation is a very big keyword right now. And a lot of times we're simply blindly following innovation in hopes that we're going to have the next latest, greatest thing that's going to save us money, save us time, and make us a lot of money. Depending on what your sector is. But saving money is always a good thing. However, people don't look at security as an investment. They look at us as a cost. So we need to constantly look at these things and bring this up as pointers. Not to mention phishing. When you're leveraging a third party, this also comes into play because now you have even more exploitable ways. So you've got your HR application outsourced. Well, you have people that are expecting to have emails from certain places. It's easy to spoof these and say, oh, we're sorry, your account got timed out, it got closed, what have you. Please reset your password by following this link. It's tried and true attack vectors, which still work. And this gives even more opportunities for these to work. Also, there's a scary amount of information out there. So consider your vendors and consider what their security is. If they have anything that's, say their entire setup is documented really well on the internet, and there's known vulnerabilities, and they have old technology, that's an easy exploit. And actually, there's been a whole lot of exploits over the years that it's come mostly from unpatched old CVEs. Going as far back as 1998, there were unpatched CVE issues that led to being breached. So people tend to think that their systems are a lot more secure than they truly are. So keep in mind, approach everything as if the attackers are already on your network. So there's a good chance they are. And that's just the sad reality of it. We are the weakest link, and anytime there's humans involved in terms of setting up our computer systems, there is a flaw. And bad guys want it more than we want to play blue team, so they will find it. It goes without saying, management loves their metrics. They really want to see what's the return on investment they're getting from security. A lot of what we do is hard to quantify. You can pull your firewall logs and say, oh look, none of this got through. Or your IDS, say, we had these signature attacks that were detected, but nothing got through. We're good to go. That still doesn't handle those exceptions as far as the ones that know what they're doing and they've exploited something else, because we don't have everything covered. Also, how many here, how many deal with third-party vendors directly or as part of you get to choose them as far as sourcing and things like that. How many of you have actually vetted your third-party vendors and what their security status is? Or sometimes some places just do, okay, here's a little questionnaire. Are you encrypting stuff? Are you actually deleting it after whatever our agreement was? 2 years, 2 weeks, what have you. It's easy to respond to questionnaires in the right way. So, how many are actually having teleconferences or face-to-face meetings or even going out and doing a risk assessment against your vendor for high-risk items? Anyone? Some of the larger corporations have initiated this, where, much like when you're going through any kind of federal review, you'll have a team go out and do a risk assessment against your vendor. And this isn't necessarily how they're protecting their stuff, because that's their problem. But how are they protecting your data within the environment that they're providing you? This can be difficult if it's out on a cloud provider, or in some instances, say you're using FedRAMP certified Amazon, that does make it a lot easier because they've already gone through a lot of the work for you. Now you still want to go through and do your standard security requirements because you're still responsible for your stuff. They're not covering that aspect. Unless you've outsourced that to someone else. We can outsource everything. throw enough money at the problem, it should go away, right? But different things have different issues involved with them. Sometimes you just need to have that face-to-face time because people will tend to have their tells when they're not being exactly forward. Are they actually using encryption for transfer, encryption at rest? Is there any at all? Yeah. You can easily answer yes on a forum. But if you're talking to a system engineer and they're, you can easily start to tell there's variances and there's failures. Now, did mention the checkbox mentality. This is a standard thing across any kind of compliance. Because especially when you have multiple compliances that you have to meet. And we do have a lot of overlap out there. And a lot of places view it as we have to do everything and we have to do it multiple times. Instead of simply leveraging it and collating everything into one location and then doing cross-references. This is part of what they start complaining about. In terms of solving the problem, we need to look at doing the right risk assessments. Remove the checkbox mentality. We're not doing the bare minimums. We're using this as a baseline, but we're going above and beyond for what suits our needs. Because there's not one thing that fits every organization. You may not have any sort of compliance that you need to meet. You can pick and choose what you want. But there are plenty out there that provide a good baseline for standard security practices. Now, whether you want to leverage NIST or some other, international is pretty good, ISOs. But at that point, it's up to you. Especially commercial sector, you have a lot more free range. I come from largely a government background, so excuse the policy line. But picking a baseline, sticking with it, tailoring it to your needs. These are key factors. I don't have it in here, but if anyone wants any directions towards anything else as far as compliance and best practices, I'm happy to give you pointers to any of it. And it tends to be laid out within most of these risk management frameworks is that we need to appropriately value the data. Are we including highly confidential data that would include social security numbers? Or is this just highly confidential proprietary, it's the secret recipe to how Coca-Cola is made? These both require different terms of security in order to function. And when you're picking a third party, you also need to consider, is this something that is known? Is it known that you're hosting your data out in Amazon or Azure or some startup that's still running in the garage? If you're a heavily sought after target and you're providing your data offsite, this can be things that are easily found out through open source intelligence, and then there's a target point. So who's looking at you? Where are your attacks coming from? But using that, making sure you have your policies and that they are implemented, because policies without implementation is worthless. So part of that falls into compliance, but it also just falls into good procedures. Yeah, policies and procedures. And we also kind of want to go towards, don't just blindly trust. Now, this is coming up to be a thing because NERC and FERC, they do have out in draft format right now a thing as far as supply chain risk focusing on cyber. It's currently out for draft for review. You can submit comments. And this is looking at how they're going to include this as another compliance requirement for securing energy systems. And it's still basic security, good practices, but now it's putting it more into a compliance method. And NIST actually has a special publication out as far as supply chain as well. It's NIST 800-161. And these are all really good resources as far as starting to improve a supply chain risk program and vetting those third parties. You know, look at it in terms of what data are you providing? What will they have access to? Are they going to have a dedicated access into your system, or is everything going to be sent to them? Are you doing batch sends? Or is there an API involved? Who's going to have access to this from your third-party side? Is this going to be a limited group? Or, if it's, say it's going up into Amazon, that could be anyone that works in there that would have access to it, depending on what region it gets stored in. Versus if it was one of the verified ones for the feds. If it's been under FedRAMP, that's a much smaller pool of people. This is, considering things that are important to you in-house, but looking at it from an external point of view. And then, obviously things like how's your data protected while it's being transferred, while it's being stored, what's your storage time frame, are they going to be deleting, or will they be retaining this because they need to have records for 5 years according to what their policy is. And a lot of this too can be handled by having contract negotiations ahead of time that incorporate cyber requirements, which, this is involving another business process, but that's currently what I'm going through, is working with 2 other sections of the business as far as what we're doing and redesigning it and getting everybody to work better and more integrated so that there's more of a flow. Because worldwide, cyber is kind of seen as a bottleneck, even though, we're just there to protect your data. We want everything to be safe. But we're an extra step. And for a lot of places, we're still a new extra step. So getting in there, being proactive, and working with them, and working with these other business processes, so that we can integrate into what they have, and a lot of it is about approach, but there's some success. So, and that's pretty much it. It's pirate life. And questions? Yes.
So I came up with like 10 while you were talking. I was just imagining all of the uncovered vulnerabilities in so many different places, right? So when you mentioned Target, I was thinking of a lot of different site surveys that have not yet occurred to detect people from a data perspective as electrical control systems. Is that something that you cover in terms of policy? Is that established?
Well, it's,
you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of, Target, they went through the HVAC, right?
right.
So think of all the, I guess, retail establishments. I know government agencies are doing site surveys for SCADA, but are retail companies doing it too?
That I'm not sure. I haven't worked with a retail company yet. But as far as like doing site surveys in more of a commercial retail, I believe some places, I would expect Target is probably doing that after.
I would expect them to, yeah, sure. But
they actually really ramped up their security afterwards. And I mean, it is kind of becoming more of a thing. People are taking it seriously, especially with all the breaches. I wouldn't say it's commonplace, however. So part of it is, being aware, even if it's as simple as, going through with the Wi-Fi pineapple, and do you have any unauthorized access points? Not everywhere is thinking about these things. It tends to be more high-profile targets that consider it. Anyone else? Yes.
Now that I've been doing PCI DSS for the last year, Target was not following the rules by having their maintenance system connected to the store system, their maintenance accounting system connected to the store system. Had they been following PCI DSS compliance, that wouldn't have happened. Jake Johnson, Homeland Security, I don't think any of the staff was, I'm an OPM victim.
Most of us probably are in this room.
Yeah, I'm on my 9th American Express card. Yeah, give it up on black, I'm back down to gold. How do I put it nicely? Anybody who was working a government contract, especially TSSCI, that does need to work, has left. So there was a massive brain drain. Jay Johnson, I'm not sure, is illiterate. For anybody at OPM to even follow. My clients are doing ISO 27001, we're all PCI compliant, that's what I do. If you have a standard, you know at least where the attacks are going to be coming from by the parts the standards do not correct. This is a brutal example. I have a gorgeous leaded glass door in front of my house because that's where, if I'm going to have a home invasion, that is where I want them to be coming in from. The field of fire, I'm not going to be getting any neighbors. There's a large pineapple palm backing it. So basically, and it's non-carpeted, so it should be easy to clean up. My wife was so happy.
Definitely a Floridian.
It's all tiles. Yeah, the rest of the house is white carpet. We don't have kids. So or pets. So basically, if you know where the attacks are coming from, because you're prepared, you're going to get attacked. But if you can basically channel the attack to know exactly where it's coming from, hey, bring it on. It gets resolved. It's there, and standardization, compliance will do that for you.
Yeah.
You know what the compliance doesn't cover is going to be your weak spot. So when you do get attacked, bam, let it happen.
And if there's appropriate continuous monitoring that's going on, the organization will be looking out for those irregularities that pop up. And that's the beauty of standardization, is you can go from one agency or one business to another and know that, okay, I've gone through at a moderate level and implemented all this stuff. So you have a known baseline to work from. So if you've got a trusted connection between these systems and then suddenly there's something else that comes through, there's a good chance that, there's either a bad guy or they might have changed something and something went wrong. But it gives you that familiarity and, looking for the irregularities. Anyone else? And my Twitter handle, if anyone? I always answer my emails.
Off-topic question. So you did mention, of course, encryption. Curiosity, what particular program do you use on your own PC, or was it company provided?
This one? As far as like resting encryption or for
Your armpits.
I use TrueGroup. I really don't keep any. This is my conference one, so this has a bunch of names on it and other miscellaneous conference presentations. And
all the hacker stickers.